Could Granblue Fantasy Relink be one of the best RPGs of 2024? Luckily, we've had the chance to play a ton of it thanks to Cygames for giving us a hands-on session. And after playing it, we now have some clues on what the answer to that question could be. Our playtime definitely left us even more excited for the game, but with some lingering questions and maybe not in the ways you would expect. So in this video, we'll go through our impressions of the game so far, what we have played, and even answer some burning questions like if we think it was worth the 8-year-long wait. So stick around to find out. After 8 years in production and a change of development from Platinum Games to Cygames, we know that Granblue Fantasy Relink will be an action RPG releasing on PC, PlayStation 4, and PlayStation 5 on February 1st of 2024. The title is expanding the popular franchise into the console market after the hugely popular mobile game. The franchise itself does have a ton of potential with exceptional music, awesome character designs, and a world packed with an exciting story. We as the players can expect to experience some amazing Granblue characters but in 3D this time, as each character has their own unique mechanics and playstyle, from Siegfried with his massive timed greatsword swings to Catalina that uses a mix of melee and magic combos which just look glorious. So let's jump into everything we've learnt about the world of Granblue Fantasy Relink. During our hands-on time with the game, we really got a look at what makes the world of Granblue Fantasy Relink tick. So what exactly did we get to play? Our hands-on session was broke into 3 different parts that represent the 3 core pillars of Relink. Firstly, we had the story, which is like the main campaign and it's a narrative-driven experience that you would expect from an RPG. And then there's the quests, which are like side objectives and can be played in multiplayer, and they're mainly there to further character progression. Finally, we had a hands-off session of the Endgame content, which is there for people looking to stay in the Skydome a little longer after finishing the campaign. It's going to have some of the most difficult challenges in the game, with some really fearsome bosses, but will reward you with powerful character progression items such as weapons and masteries. The story portion of the session took up the majority of the time and allowed us to experience the actual story of Granblue Fantasy Relink, which takes place in the Zegagran Skydome. Within it, we take on the role of Gran or Jita as the captain of remarkable heroes, some appearing from the Granblue Fantasy mobile game. The story is set against an epic backdrop, as the Zegagran Skydome is a world where islands of all shapes and sizes float in the sky of clouds. We know that the official description of the story is a world forsaken by the gods. Once upon a time, people known as the Astrals attempted to seize control of this world with their overwhelming might, but citizens of the skies repelled the invaders, thus ushering in a new era of peace. Within the first few hours of the game, they set up the story in this grand JRPG. Something is disturbing the massive creatures called Primals, and in addition to that, our crew of heroes are on the search to find a mysterious island called the Island of Astrals, Esta Lucia. It did make us intrigued as to how the game was going to unfold, but with only a few hours of hands-on time, it's impossible to get the full picture of the story, and to be honest, it did start off rather slow after the initial bang of the intro of the game, and then really started to pick up again as the demo ended, and within that we actually got to face off against one of the bosses. The brief session we have did, however, give us a glimpse onto how the story will be told and the actual gameplay structure of the campaign, which is probably the most important thing that we could glean from it, especially if you are a fan of JRPGs in general, as it will be nice to know if you are going to be getting into something similar to, say, Final Fantasy VII Remake, the Tales of games, or the Persona games, as they all have different ways of delivering their story. We know that something a lot of you will probably be interested to know about is the stage structure and flow. Action RPGs can land on a broad spectrum of world sizes and structures, from open world to super linear corridor crawlers. Granblue Fantasy Relink isn't open world, but follows a series of more linear structures. I wouldn't say it is dramatically different from old Final Fantasy games or Tales of games, as you're often following a main route through a stage where there's some areas that you can deviate into to find hidden items, but mostly you're meant to be moving forwards in a trajectory that is a bit obvious with enemy encounters in between. And then outside of these stages, you will also have access to a town area whereby you can continue the story by talking to characters and learning more about them. In here, you can undertake fate episodes, upgrade your character, group up for multiplayer sessions, or go out on a quest. And for the storytelling, it felt more like your traditional anime game storytelling, and the vibe we got from the few hours that we played, it wasn't really anything groundbreaking or overly cinematic like back-to-back cutscenes that you would get in Final Fantasy VII Remake, but it's something close to what you would expect from a Tales of game, which mixes together scripted cutscenes, dialogue pop-ups, and some high-end production scenes. This is keeping it in line to something that you would expect from this type of RPG, and if you want to get a better feel for whether or not you would like the storytelling, you can check out the gameplay part 1 of Relink, which we already have on the channel for you. The next big component of the storytelling though is the voice acting, and for that you will have the option to select either Japanese or English dub options, so if you have a preference you can choose the one that suits your style. We really enjoyed most of the English voices, but we will point out that it wouldn't be an anime game without the inclusion of a mascot with an extremely annoying English voiceover, and Relink has a character called Vern.
You okay, buddy?
Even though we can't show you the very start of the game actually starts off with a pretty big bang, which the developers are saving as a surprise for when it releases. But during that scene, you are introduced to each of the characters in your party, and something that a lot of you felt after watching the gameplay that we uploaded, and we did too while playing, is that even though the developers have previously stated that you don't need any Granblue lore knowledge to experience Relink, there are phrases and characters referenced very early on, and there is a glossary option that will explain these things so you don't feel like you're missing out, but without that knowledge you wouldn't really understand what's going on. In addition to getting hands-on with the campaign, we were able to ask the director, Yasuyuki Kaji, questions about the story, and within this, we found out that the story will last for around 20 hours, which may be disappointing news to some of you that like your RPGs to last over 50 hours and onwards. But it seems like there is additional content and story scenarios that will be unlocked after completing the story, which is listed as another 20 to 40 hours worth of gameplay time. But you guys should really tell us what you think is the perfect time for an RPG's campaign. Personally for me, I would be happy with a story being around 20 hours long, as long as it fulfilled what I wanted out of the game and left me satisfied. I would rather have a good game than a drawn out longer game. And of course, one of the biggest draws of an action RPG is the action. This is delivered through the gameplay systems, and it's gradually introduced over the course of a few hours to you. The hack and slash gameplay is simple compared to some other action kings like Devil May Cry or Bayonetta, but we very quickly learned that it offers the players different combo options and tactics which may not be noticeable there at first glance. For example, let's take the main character. Yes, you can quite easily just mash the attack button without a care in the world and still deal damage, but you can deal even more damage by using different combo strings, such as adding in a charged press or a special button input to mix in, which will add to your Adept Arts level. This Adept Arts level is important as the higher level you have, which is shown on the screen as an indicator, the more damage your skills will then deal when you unleash them. There's also additional combat options in the form of aerial attacks, and Gran can even launch enemies up by quickly pressing the attack button after jumping, and another layer to the combat is the inclusion of skills, which we mentioned earlier on, as characters can have up to 4 of these skills equipped at a single time. Each skill has its own strengths, cooldown, and element attached to it. Let's take a look at one of Gran's offensive skills, Decimate. This is a multi-hit slash with a wide radius that deals more hits based on the Adept Arts level with the element of wind. This means if you make sure you're juggling your adept level as high as possible while fighting enemies, you can ensure you get the most out of this awesome skill when you pair it up with the fact that you can select 3 other additional skills that will synergize with Decimate. If you're like me though, you will love a good old flashy attack, and you'll be happy to hear that this game has some very awesome ultimate attacks called Skybound Arts. These are devastating attacks that can be triggered once your bar is full, and it will unleash massive damage onto the target. Interestingly though, due to Granblue being a squad-based game, each squad member is able to quickly chain together their Skybound Art within a short window of each other, and if done correctly, the 5th Skybound Art to trigger will activate a full burst, which will cause even more damage and leave the enemy staggered, giving your squad the opportunity to damage them even more. And I've got to say guys, every single time one of these popped up, it was enjoyable and totally worth the effort. Alongside the skills and Skybound Arts though, players will also be able to dodge and guard in combat. Both perfect dodging and regular dodging allows you to quickly evade out of the way of an enemy attack, and doing it perfectly will literally grant you temporary invincibility. From the looks of some of those endgame fights, these perfect dodges and the temporary invincibility is probably going to be needed to survive some attacks, but don't worry, the window to trigger it did seem pretty forgiving from our experience. Guard is also there if you hold down the button press, which blocks an attack, but can break if you take too many hits. You can also perfectly guard by timing your button presses correctly against the enemy attacks to get some bonus benefits such as nullifying knockback, while also filling the stun gauge of nearby enemies. The thing is, you will want to fill the stun gauge on enemies because it works in combination with the link attack system. You can see the stun gauge below an enemy's health bar, and once it's full, the area will be covered in blue, giving you the chance to perform a link attack. These link attacks were pretty awesome to pull off and always felt like they came in at just the right moment. And something cool is that if you fill the link gauge enough, it will give your party some massive buffs, like hugely reducing your cooldowns and then slowing down the enemy into a bubble. Another element of variety added into Relink though is the playable characters, which is something that the Granblue franchise is known for, and that love of the characters definitely bleeds over into the gameplay, as each character has their own skills, mechanics, and Skybound Arts. For example, Rackham, which is a gunner character, is completely different from the main character Gran, as you need to upkeep his gauge to deal damage while also timing your button presses. We really enjoyed trying out the different characters and finding a few that would work well for our single player team and deciding on the perfect character for online play. One thing that is commonly asked about Relink though is how to unlock the characters, and while we cannot show you the menu, you can unlock characters by earning crewmate tickets during the normal campaign and activities that can then be used to unlock the exact character you want. The one other thing to clarify is that you won't be switching between characters during gameplay either, but you can change to the assigned character you control before heading out on quests. One of the most impressive parts of the game was definitely the boss fight encounters, as they are super engaging. They feel like a fresh take on the action genre, as they're kind of like a mix of traditional action game gameplay, but also heavily inspired with different MMO elements. The closest thing that we could compare this to, since a lot of you will probably be Monster Hunter fans, is that of Extreme Behemoth, where you would need to watch out for their physical attacks as they are actually swinging at you, but also looking out for those magical red worrying puddles on the floor, making the fight feel a bit overwhelming but also extremely fun. During our demo, we experienced one of the earlier primals called Fury Cane, and this did offer a challenge as they were throwing out multiple massive tornadoes and cleaving the stage. The whole backdrop of the fight was awesome, with intense combat and even the boss transforming, which was part of his overdrive mode. The main story is just one component of the game, and the content continues then into quests. Quests are contained missions that come in a number of different permutations, such as survival, boss fights, and taking on hordes. They can also be playable either in solo, offline, or online in a party. The developers also told us that the quest before unlocking the endgame content would add on an extra 20 to 40 hours of gameplay on top of the initial campaign. It seems from what we played of them, the quests are designed in a way to be highly replayable, with additional challenges and rewards based on your performance within the quest, so basically how well you do. We got to experience a wave-based survival quest in which we had to defeat as many enemies as possible within a certain time limit. There was also a great fight against a griffin boss in which we really had to pull up our socks to complete the challenges in order to beat it with a super short time limit, and then there was an incredible fight versus one of the game's ancient dragons, which is one of those things that we wanted to fight ever since we saw it in the gameplay years ago. Each of these different fights were unique and enjoyable in their own way, although unfortunately we didn't get a chance to try out any other different quest types due to the time restrictions that we had, so we don't currently know what all of the variety will be like when it comes to these quests. The multiplayer is a big component of the game, and it will allow players to go online with up to 3 other players to form a party. Each player can then select a single character from their roster of unlocked characters to use and play as, and the game will allow you to customize your character as well. We really like that there is this customization, as you can pick the same character as someone else if they're your favorite. One thing I really enjoyed about the structure of these multiplayer quests is just how similar it was to Monster Hunter, and we know you guys are big Monster Hunter fans too. You will need to invite players into your lobby. You then put up a quest for them to join, and it feels like going out on a hunt in the same way as Monster Hunter. Something that got us even more excited when looking through our notes is that the game will have a part break system, much like Monster Hunter, whereby parts will be able to break and then yield you more rewards. Don't worry, if you want to play solo though, you can still do this and fill the other party slots with AI characters, and that works if you want to play online with a group of friends then you aren't a full 4 stack. The game will just adapt to it and place AI in those missing party slots, so you can play with as many friends as you want to, up to 4 people. But if you don't like the idea of having a party at all and you just want to go in with one character and flex your skills, you can also do that as well. From our play session, the multiplayer aspect of the game was definitely our favourite part of it. It was super fun to jump in with others and take down massive bosses, all while earning some rewarding loot. And one thing that we will say is that this multiplayer aspect of it is basically in addition to the campaign content, so this is looking pretty good if you do enjoy the multiplayer side of things. And you should know that the character progression systems are going to be super important after you have completed the campaign. They allow your character to become even more powerful and add new interesting ways of dealing damage. The character progression in the game is more robust than we first thought it would be, as in our mind we thought it would just be some levels and unlocking a few abilities, but this rabbit hole goes pretty deep. While we don't have a complete picture because we haven't put hundreds of hours into the game, it looks like the progression systems are spread across 3 different aspects. Characters will be able to level up to a maximum of level 100, and through various different game activities players will earn mastery points, which can then be used to unlock nodes on the mastery tree. These can be skills, stat bonuses, or even additional mechanics for the character to make them even more effective in combat. Then there are gear items that can be equipped to the character that can also be leveled up or crafted via the blacksmith. You will need to go out into the world to find resources or take down enemies to then craft the weapons that you need. And then in a nice harmony with the weapon upgrades, crafting sigils is also a thing that you will have because you can have loads of these equipped. New slots are unlocked via the mastery tree, and sigils are basically like this game's gear, as each sigil equipped to you will give you a different bonus. For example, if you want more health in your build, you can do that. If you want to have your skills up more often, you can add lowering cooldown sigils. The developers have said that sigils are a great way to build around your character's strength and take them to the next level. We think it's pretty cool that they've added in something like this, and we hope that some sigils will be rare to chase, but also common enough that they aren't annoying to find, considering that you will need a lot of them. And then there's something that a lot of other games with grindy content fall short on, which is simply the reason for doing the grind. During our hands-off session, we were treated to a demonstration of the endgame content by the developers, and it looks like they are heading in the right direction. Often games ask you to spend hundreds of hours grinding to get some gear that doesn't even make a tangible difference to your build, just to then fight some boring bosses. But from the demo that we got to see of the endgame content that's unlocked after completing the campaign, it will have monsters that introduce new spicy mechanics that are way more aggressive. For example, we got to see something that looked like a bit of a bullet hell in terms of the gameplay, and in our live demo, the developer only got hit twice and died, and there was a new mechanic that the squad couldn't even fully damage the boss until they cleansed it by throwing defeated adds at the boss. The whole thing was very impressive, and the developers did reiterate that the content that we got to see, even though they had been doing it with a specific tactic to take it down by using an invincibility bubble skill and a high burst skill within that, wasn't even the most difficult content, and there'll be many more bosses to experience in the final game. The reason that we said we feel like it's going in the right direction is because for the end game, you want clear goals, a good challenge, and interesting engagements, and it feels like you're becoming more powerful. And from what we saw there, it seemed like it had those things. Now this does sound very cool, and we are hoping it isn't just a marketing pitch and ends up being an endgame where it's the same monster recolored 15 times, so you actually just end up fighting the Ultra Mega Alpha Galaxy Star Pompon first of its name style boss that just looks like a Power Ranger with different colors. Hopefully they are actually all different bosses with their own mechanics, names, and appearances. We saw from you in our previous videos questions about the music, the presentation, and performance. From what we experienced, the music was amazing. The composers for Relink are definitely knocking it out of the park, and the soundtrack is thrilling. You can definitely feel the passion that went into it, with a mix of a more upbeat town music and then grand pieces during boss fights. I'm sure no one will be let down by the music aspect of this game, and you can even hear the awesome music playing in the background of this video. For the performance, we didn't notice any massive drops in frame rate that would hinder the gameplay. The demo that we played did have a performance mode selected from what we could see within the menu, but this doesn't necessarily mean that it was actually functioning, as sometimes even though these things can be visible in the menu, it doesn't necessarily mean it's been implemented, and we couldn't get a confirmation of this with the developers, so we can't say for 100%. Unrelated to our gameplay session, we also got a friend to ask if there would be any DLC characters, but Cygames are keeping that under wraps as they said it's too early to talk about that at the moment. But what did we ultimately think of our time with Relink? We think that Cygames has the potential to build out something special here, as it has fun gameplay, epic boss fights, amazing music, and a good base for character progression that could keep people hooked. We don't think it will be for everyone, as it is more of a proper traditional JRPG game through the characters and storytelling, but if that is your cup of tea, then this will probably be right up your street. A big draw for fans of RPGs is of course the story, and from our short time playing Relink, it would be impossible for us to tell you if Relink's story is going to be a great one, as if you played any RPG, you will know that they usually start to take off in around the second half. To be brutally honest, after the initial intro of the game and story did have a long stretch of feeling kind of slow. That was until we got to the third chapter and then everything started popping off. So by experiencing both sides of this, we can see that the game has all of the components to tell an immersive and exciting story, but we just haven't seen enough of it. We think the base goal of taking on massive godlike creatures should be good enough to keep most people interested, but only time will tell. We're definitely excited to try it out when it releases. We've also seen a lot of people are already going into this game with incredibly high expectations. If you were looking for this to turn the industry upside down with groundbreaking new elements due to it being in development for over 8 years, Relink probably isn't going to do that. But it is a fantastic mix of a bunch of different things that we've come to love across different games, such as it having cool bosses, a world that you genuinely want to learn more about, and taking down monsters with your friends. We can see a lot of people resonating with it, and it creating a large fan base similar to the successes in the video game space like Genshin Impact, the Tales of series, and Xenoblade. We are concerned about the variety in the game, as it seems a lot of the gameplay takes place in very small arenas, mostly fighting against bosses, so it'll be interesting to see how they can mix things in with that to keep us engaged. One thing that did really impress us is that the game is kind of like the best parts of a gacha game, but without the gacha elements for having to pull the characters or time blockers with energy systems, meaning you can just enjoy the game at your own pace. Next year is looking really good for RPG fans, and with Relink being up there hanging out with some of our favourites, we feel the easiest way for us to convey how we feel about the game is through a series of rapid fire questions and answers. So do we think the game will be good? Yes, if you like JRPG games, especially the Tales of games. Do you think the game will be amazing? Maybe we just haven't played enough of it yet, but we did really enjoy our time. Do we think it was worth the 8-year-long wait? Absolutely not, but development time is based on a bunch of different factors, and with the game switching studios, it's kind of to be expected. To be honest, I'm more so concerned about how the finished product plays than how long it took to make. Does the game feel dated? We wouldn't say dated, but you can definitely feel that it is a cross-gen title, like many games releasing recently are. What is our biggest concerns? It's probably going to be if the grind is inflated and how repetitive it will get after hours are sunk in. Is the game a gacha game? That's a big no, it is not. Do you think multiplayer is a good addition? Definitely yes, it adds so much to it. Are we worried about the endgame? No, it actually looks better than we thought it would, especially at this stage, but we don't know if the game is meant to be played forever. Are you more or less excited after playing? The answer is definitely way more excited. Should you play in dub or sub? Well, you can do what you like, I'll probably go with dub. How are the characters? Well, the different characters that we tried felt really good to play, and they definitely have a bunch of variety. As you can see, we're pretty excited about this one, and after playing it, we can't wait for the release. However, we want to make sure that you have your expectations in check before heading into this game. So we wanted to point out all of the possible pitfalls, allowing you to be cautiously optimistic as we are, because there's still a bunch of unknowns when it comes to the actual content. We're hoping that this could be an epic action RPG with a great story, an impressive multiplayer, and a fun endgame grind. But it could easily be a generic story with copy and paste boring endgame in-game content with only surface level systems we just don't know fully yet. It's looking more so likely to be the former, but only time will tell, and if you want to see more of it, then we have some juicy gameplay for you next, so let us know what you're thinking about Relink so far.
Luck, and stay safe.
Man, those people we saved are so grateful.
Our job isn't over yet. Those winds are still a big problem.
You're not wrong. Looks like a mining setup. Neat.
The winds have picked up. Rather foreboding, isn't it? Let's hurry.
Whoa! This place gets way bigger on the inside.
Whoa. Look, everyone!
Some sort of altar?
That's the Primal Beast!
A long move, that could be us. We can forget about ever making it home.
Here again? Huh? That's its name. Just for a second, I could hear its whispers.
Ugh, more goons! Just our luck!
Do you think these goblins are running away from the Primal Beast?
Sure seems that way.
But if we leave them be, they'll just try to ransack the town again.
Into the fray!
Got him!
How much ammo do you have left? Looking good.
Oh, crud! Watch out! This thing's not gonna hold up much longer!
You gotta be kidding! Jump for it!
Wait, what? This is insane! Look out!
We can take refuge in the back cave.
Now it's below us! We're almost there! Haven't we get through enough of this already?
Looks like the only way left is up. Either we move it or lose it, folks.
Poor thing. Stuck in a ceaseless rampage.
It's suffering a great deal.
These raging things never learn or what?
What's become of them? Are they deranged?
I don't know. They're trying to take us down with them. Ooh, don't let it take you!
There's the exit! We're all free! Man, I feel like my wings are gonna fall off.
Something blocking our connection?
Catch
This
this!
is just like what happened with Bahamut.
Well, we've dealt with rampaging primals before. We'll just have to do it again.
Right. We'll chip away at its defenses until Lyria is able to absorb its power.
Listen, we're going to save you.
You do us proud.
Got it in my sights. Best back off. Watch
cautious behavior for now.
All these rough winds. Kinda reminds me of Tiamat, doesn't it?
Tiamat's anger was always motherly somehow. But Furikin's gales seemed to shriek with hate.
We'll never hit it at this rate!
It turned into a big wind bullet. How do you stop that?
I think I can help. Lord of Light, come forth! Over here! Quickly!
You better stay in the bubble.
Listen, thank goodness!
Hey, nice, Lyria. Glad he's fighting on our side this time.
Focus. Furikin's power is starting to swell.
Hold up. Did the demon pony just transform?
It is a primal beast, after all. Were you expecting something different? You can tell primal beasts were weapons created by astrals. Their powers are capable of untold destruction, but after the war, they abandoned it here in the Skybound. Some took to the lands. Some were deified. Still others found a home alongside Skydwellers and helped advance great civilization.
A Puritan, primal of vitality. It blessed him filled with its power.
How callous it is to twist this creative soul into an instrument of destruction.
Payback's on its way.
All right, just don't get sloppy, because this thing means business.
Puritan, I promise we'll save you. Its magic reserves are crazy. It keeps flinging attack after attack at us.
Something about Furikin's power feels unnatural.
Huh? What do you mean?
I'm not sure, but something isn't right.
Looks like Lyria's starting to get through.
An opening!
Now we're getting somewhere.
Not now, not ever! Catalina!
I'll protect you!
Look into the eyes! Back up!
Loud and clear.